welcome you to the Exeter Township Board of Directors Workshop meeting for August. This is the time when we try to work through the mechanics of what we're going to vote on next week. Looking out, I see that there's no one here that I have to explain that to. I'm not going to bother to explain it. I will announce for the record that we had an executive session prior to this meeting, and we discussed litigation. Getting into the agenda. We have a set of minutes to be considered before next week. I would ask that you review those for any changes. Does anyone have any changes to be brought forward at this time? Then we have the two policies. The eligibility of non-resident students would be the second reading. I would direct you to pages 2 and 4, where our solicitor has made some changes which he felt addressed the concern that we might have to, that we might enter into a money-losing operation with any special ed children that would come over. So we'll be discussing that. Are there any comments to be made on that at the time? The second policy is the administration's attempt to do away with electronic cigarettes. There in the red, you can see the changes that they are proposing. I would say under the paragraph opposite the number 3 authority, it says the use or inhalation of which stimulates smoking. I think you probably meant to say simulates smoking.
I don't really know where electronic cigarettes are.
Well, I mean, you know, they do see it as a gateway to smoking, so it could be stimulates.
Yeah, I
really
think that's.
could be one or the other.
I'll check. This is from a PSBA recommended policy, and we felt we should, with the changing technologies that affects everything, including smoking, that we should add this in.
I spent Saturday with them, all day Saturday with them. They're not too smart either.
Who's that?
PSBA.
PSBA, yeah. I'll check the language and make sure that it shouldn't be, the T should be there.
But if the rest of you like to review that, we can.
For the record, I agree with that.
What's that? No, this was before that.
Now we get to business functions.
Mr.
Yes.
On the policy, I couldn't find it along with everything when we got started. The policy concerning the eligibility.
Back to the first policy.
Yes.
Yes. It's in C at the where it has 6 A, B, C at the back. It says tuition, the official tuition amount is annually established for the school district by the state.
That's true.
How does the state, I thought we said the
No.
No,
millage.
the state establishes for every school district, it established the tuition for a non-resident student.
Oh, the state, oh, okay.
The state does, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, all right, I thought you meant the millage that would
Oh,
be given
no.
out from the. Well, I still disagree with the policy because I do believe that, and I will be voting against this next week, as Carol also reminded the board that community is a good thing, and that a lot of times children that would come into the district just because their parent got a 50% tuition difference, I think is not the right thing to do because,
Well,
you know,
that is not the point of this proposal. The point of this proposal is to attract non-residential, commercial, or commercial businesses into the township, which would then pay property taxes on the facility, which we require that they have inside the city, so that we can then try to bleed ourselves a little bit away from residential property tax and gain the benefits of having commercial entities paying property taxes within the township. So it is not a matter of no one could bring their child here to go to school here without first establishing a business and creating or buying a facility from which to conduct that business. That's the whole point of it, is to attract businesses into the township to get some relief from the residential property taxes. So,
I understand that, but I think we're opening up Pandora's.
well, I don't think you do understand that.
I understand,
You
but I
wouldn't have
understand-
said what you said.
I understand what you're trying to do, but I think when someone from outside the district, even if someone, the property owner, the business owner has property here in the township, that does not give an out, because they live somewhere else, maybe they live in Reading, or maybe they live in, maybe they think it's a less desirable place for their children to go to school, would use our school. I think all public schools in the state are qualified to keep their children and educate their children. That's what I
Anyone who
felt.
believes that all schools in the state of Pennsylvania are equal is very naive. So,
Well,
but
as
if
I
I
said,
had a business and could get my child into a better school, I would take advantage of that. But if we could move on.
Actually,
This is,
could I
go
comment
ahead.
on it? I was looking at this and I thought, well, if we're offering that as an enticement to come and put your business in our community, then are we going to offer a different enticement for someone else who doesn't have children, for them to come into the community?
No, I hadn't intended to. You could bring it up if you wanted to.
Oh, God. Well, but why are you giving this person special preference and this person not the
Because it's
same?
something we have that we can offer him. From the township side, we are going to offer incentives. But I cannot offer, the only thing we have to offer to a potential commercial operation is this, and it's very limited. It means the owner has to have 51% of the ownership of the facility, and has to have a kid for 4 years. And we have nothing else to offer other than our good looks and our name.
Could they bring their grandchildren in?
That's not, they are not, unless they are the guardian of their grandchildren.
They're the guardian, if they become the guardian of their grandchildren.
It has to be their child that they're responsible to educate. We'll discuss that again next week. Go ahead.
Actually, I think the idea and the concept behind it is very progressive, and I think it's something where you can grow a community. I think the idea that doesn't grow a community is actually not looking past where you're at. If someone establishes their building and where their business into a community, they therefore want to have ties there. If their child then attends the school, they're going to have additional ties into the community or want to become part and more involved in the community, which then will make them more proponent for what we're doing and could yield more benefits to us. In addition, when you look at it, you're always trying to sell something. Doesn't matter what business it is or what you're doing, you're always selling something. We sell Exeter Township School District's quality of education. Every day we step out and we ask someone to move to our community and put their children here. So therefore, we're just looking at another way to tell people to move their business here. And if they do have a business and they want to provide for their children to come to our school district by paying a fee, I think that is actually a very good thing for our community. And we should be looking at this as a positive way to go forward instead of something putting up more roadblocks to growing the community.
Any other comments? Moving on, do we have one here from the business functions?
I have that role.
Oh,
Under business functions, taking the place of Mr. Stoff this evening. Next week, we'll be considering a few things. First, we'll be recommending that the Board of School Directors exonerate Exeter Township School District tax collector from the collection of the remaining 2013 per capita duplicate for St. Lawrence Borough, consisting of 198 delinquent per capita or $1,980 of unpaid taxes, and 44 exonerated per capita bills, and authorize the district to submit the delinquent per capita bills to Berkheimer Associates for collection. Prior year consisted of 152, equating to $1,520 delinquent per capita and 100 exonerated per capita bills. That will be shown in attachment 6.A. Second, we will be recommending that the Board of School Directors approve a consulting agreement for the site work project at Watton Creek Elementary School between the Exeter Township School District and Stackhouse Benzinger. The consultant will perform construction phase engineering services for the owner for the site work project at the Watton Creek Elementary School. Compensation to the consultant will be on a time and materials basis as shown in attachment 6.B. Third, we will be recommending that the Board of School Directors engage the services of the PFM Group, better known as Public Financial Management Incorporated, as a consultant to district administration and financial planning as it relates to asset and debt management. Fourth, we recommend.
Can we speak on any of these? Can we ask questions on any of these, or are you going to
That's-
go first?
You can ask questions if you like.
that's the point of the meeting.
All right,
Anytime,
well, just
just
one-
break in or else you
okay,
get
just one
going.
quickly. We had 2 people come before us concerning being the financial advisors, right?
Correct.
How do we never discussed how we would arrive at this one. Who made this decision?
It's not a decision until the board votes on it. This is a recommendation of the administration.
And what was your basis for that as compared to the other person?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll let Ann speak to that as well, but this one was a much larger group with broader scope and experience, we felt. Go ahead, Ann, I know that you
Dr. Martin stated it accurately that PFM, they made the presentation at the second meeting in June, and all of their references, all this, the volume of school districts, the volume of transactions that they've done, as well as the whole package which they're able to offer in terms of not only debt management, but also looking at investments. They presented, they have a budget model which we would be interested in taking a look at. Now, obviously, they don't get paid unless a deal is done. And the point is there's potential there to save money. And we felt, based upon the 2, that PFM, with all that they have to offer and with their, it's a large organization, that they could provide a better expertise.
Well, when I asked them the question concerning the swaps, and I remember the presentation, but that's why I was wondering why, there was no discussion with the board as to this recommendation prior to this meeting. We just heard this now, that we have one person. One of the 2, this is the one that was recommended. I just asked how did this come about as far as being recommended. However, when I asked them about the swaps, they said they were the number 1 financial advisors for the state. Isn't that what they said? Yes. And we know that the state lost many millions and millions of school districts throughout the state, millions and millions and millions of dollars on these swaps. And they did represent Reading. And I know Reading lost a lot of money on swaps. And they kind of said, well, they told them that they should get into them. And I find it hard that if you're paying someone, and I think someone even made that statement, if you're asking someone for advice and you're paying them for that advice, and they give you the advice and then you go against it, I mean, that's how they presented that, at least as far as I recall it. So I was a little leery of the way they danced around that subject. Did you ever?
And I wanted to get it out for discussion with the school board, because we have refinancing opportunities coming up. And if the board, the majority of the board wants to go forward with an independent financial advisor, we need to discuss this and put it on the agenda for discussion. We do have some opportunities that are on the horizon now, and the plan was to have RBC Capital come in soon. I was planning on next week and do a presentation and start having discussions with the independent financial advisor in conjunction with RBC to talk about how to structure the deal, brainstorm on different scenarios. So I'm just trying to move it forward because we do have refinancing opportunities in front of us that we need to take care of. And if the board wants an IFA, independent financial advisor, we need to make a decision.
And I recommended that this be addressed, and if you want to cross it out and put Concord in there on Tuesday, that can be done. But I recommended that whomever it would be, we bring them in prior to talking with RBG again. Because what I am going to recommend to the board is that we take whomever we choose as a financial management firm, provide them with everything we've got, and tell them, if you'll remember my last question to Jamie and Jamie, was they described a nationwide network of expertise which would be available to them in making recommendations to us. And what I would like to see done, and what I'm going to recommend to the board as a goal, is to get them in for a total review of our finances, to see how we can put our capital and our assets to best use, make recommendations thereon, with the objective of, again, reducing our dependence upon residential property taxes. And we know where 33% of our money is going to go in the next 4 years in both the pension and the medical. So we've got a third of our budget that we know where it has to be spent, and it is not elective, it's something we have to do. So with that knowledge and with the knowledge of all the assets we have, I feel a company of PFM's size and depth could be able to come up with appropriate recommendations on how we can steer away from dependence upon residential property tax and the dependence upon the state money. It is always going to be there, but it's, I'd like to stop being at the end of the state's tail. When they want to wag us, they wag us because they provide such a large firm. So I want somebody with some expertise to take a look at everything we have and our obligations and make recommendations to this board on how we can gain independence from the state to the maximum degree, and certainly from individual residential property taxes. So that's, and like I said, you can put any letters in there you want so far as a firm, if you can argue it to the board's satisfaction that Concord is better than PFM. If you got ABC Financial Management, you can bring them up. They have not been considered, and that would delay the process. But I would like to see someone in place before we start talking about refinancing any bond or reissuing any bonds or anything of that nature. That should be an integral part of what their plans are.
So in this advisory capacity, that is just something that they provide as part of a contract with them? They're being compensated just based on conducting a transaction? Is that their compensation? And what is the term of any agreement with them? Is it by transaction or is it an annual agreement, or how does that work?
It's by transaction. There's no contract for services with them. The only agreement that we would sign is when there is a bond borrowing. You know, there's certain disclosures and agreements now because of all the SEC regulations. But back to your point, Pat, about the swaps. What I recorded in the minutes that Ms. Jamie Doyle said that more often than not, the role of what PFM plays is to assist clients in getting out of swaps. And maybe I need a better understanding here. I guess I was envisioning that we would walk before we would run with the new, with a financial advisor. And so I'm glad we're discussing it, Mr. Quinter, because
Well, I hadn't had the opportunity to bring it up yet. This will be discussed on Monday night.
because I'm envisioning, starting a relationship, and the way that it works, for example, with Hamburg, and they have a relationship at Haverford as well, RBC and PFM playing the role of IFA. They are involved in the discussions about refinancing opportunities. RBC continues at this point, to prepare the official statement. They do the presentation. Sometimes the independent financial advisor is at the meeting if they can make it, sometimes not. Sometimes the independent financial advisor does the presentation, RBC doesn't. So I'm envisioning starting out a relationship. And in order to get a whole plan together, I just don't want to miss any opportunity. And I can talk with RBC and PFM this week about your idea, but I just don't want the district to miss out on opportunities.
No, I was giving my ultimate goal. That's not going to happen next week.
Right.
But
Okay.
what I told you in the email when we discussed RBG or whoever it is coming in, is I wanted our financial manager firm, if we were going to have one, to be here to hear this and to provide us with advice on that. That's the whole objective of it. And the actual role will be determined by the board, not Bob Quinter,
Right.
as we move forward. I just gave you my vision, to use a trite phrase, of what they would do. And if I can sell that to the board, then that would be what.
Well, I think the way that Ann articulated it makes sense. I mean, that was the whole point of bringing in an independent financial advisor, was to have them at the start to be truly that. So the concern that we had, or the thing that we wanted to look into, not necessarily a concern, was, would an IFA have the board do something differently? Just another set of eyes looking at transactions in a different way. So
Absolutely.
that's really
And that fits into it, yeah.
Except that I get the feeling that the opportunity to refinance is going to be require less time, or there's going to be an opportunity that's with less time than there's going to be to go through this process. If RBC were to present next week and the IFA was not here, then how much effort and time would they need in order to review what RBC had presented to say, well, this is a different option, and then the time passes when you can actually refinance, because you've only got a month to go. So
I guess, Carol, they could do it a lot quicker than we could, because it's what they do for a living. They're professionals. I can't imagine it, and they don't have to have this public debate and public meeting. They can do that work from whatever primary material is provided to them and advise us. I mean, that's
Right, but we still have to have the discussion because they're only advising, and so now you're sitting here with two options, perhaps with two options, and if they don't agree, and the time moves on, and that would be my concern.
What is our time? What's our, does it matter? I mean, I don't know, does it not matter?
We decide the time frame.
Well, no, I think what
This
what
board
she's
decides
referring
the
to is
timeframe.
we
Window of
have,
opportunity.
We have the window
issues
of-
coming up. that we
Yeah,
have to-
that's why I wanted
Right.
the financial management firm to be here, whomever it is.
What is
Because,
our issues, or what issues coming up
Well-
that needs us to move on that?
The issues that we have, and we've, can we wait? The waiting, do we risk, there's a bank loan, bank note opportunity on the 2010 issue. And waiting, there's interest rate risk, there's rates changing, banks not willing to offer these deals any longer. But, would we still be in a good place in September? Probably. These opportunities were back in, June, July, and RBC has been providing me with information, and then the discussion started about, we brought in the IFAs in June. So I'm just trying to move the process along and find, and have the board decide whether we will move ahead with an IFA. I can start this week discussing with RBC and PFM over conference calls. This is what we're looking at. The board can approve the consultant agreement. Well, it's not an agreement. Approve administration working with PFM, and also hear what RBC in conjunction with PFM, what they have to say. I know Jamie Schlesinger can't make it next Tuesday. I'm not sure about Jamie Doyle. We can certainly, I could find out, for certain if we could push to September, if you'd rather wait until then.
I don't see any reason to delay it. They can have somebody here, and this is not brain surgery. This is something that they are involved with every day or every month of the year. It's just getting another recommendation before this board, and hopefully have some long-term continuity in the planning. But inviting them should not, in other words, I would not disqualify them if Jamie or Jamie could not be here. This is an opportunity for them to get in. I would bet that they will have someone representing the corporation here if we invite them.
And this presentation by RBC is just a presentation. It's an update on our opportunities. A lot of things have to happen before any refinancing would take place.
Well, as I said, my concern was about the swaps, and could you get any information as to how many districts that they were advising did do swaps? I mean, since they were the #1 business in the state that works with school districts, and there were lots of school districts. I mean, did they work with the Philadelphia School District as well as with the Reading School District? Because Philadelphia School District lots and lots of money too. That's all I want to know, because maybe, I can't imagine a board going against the recommendation of its financial advisors on these swaps, which they entered into. That's all I wanted to know, because, we just learned what a mess we have with, a contractor that did work on the Wanton Creek, and, so. And we don't want to go, I don't want to go into working with someone who advised past clients in very bad situations.
What I took away from their presentation was that they educated their clients a lot, over and over and over again, so that they knew exactly what they were getting into. It was the boards of the school districts that decided to do that. Some school districts were winners, others were losers. But again, they play a role more often than not, as she said, in getting the people out of swaps. PFM has a lot more resources than the other firm that made the presentation, and you need those resources for a lot of different reasons. And first of all, determining whether you're getting a good deal. They have access to all of that information. So if we're able to ever ascertain whether we're saving money by having them on board with us, they're going to be able to tell us that, hopefully.
Well, we know that R&B got us out of those swaps last year, didn't they?
RBC
Yeah, RBC.
assisted us. They
Yes.
came, the board approved them as, in 2009, and at that point, the board had decided to unwind the different swaps. They assisted us in getting out of them. They did not get us.
No, I know they did the simple. I mean, I wasn't on the board, but I heard you say that.
I think it's time to move on this.
Just a quick, my perspectives on this. I really think, and I heard Mr. Dysinger make a comment the last time as well, Pat. I think whenever you have an advisor, I think he makes or she makes presentations about the pros and the cons, but ultimately it is the board that makes a decision. And I've never been in a situation where I have felt that I needed to listen to the advisor's recommendation. He or she was simply making a presentation about the pros and the cons. And we, as the board, have to evaluate that and make a decision. Second thing, and I apologize, this may come out the wrong way, but the whole idea to have PFM involved was to get rid of RBC, in my opinion. And I can't see how RBC coming in as a partner with PFM makes any sense whatsoever. PFM is supposed to be the axe, the muscle with all of the underwriters. They're supposed to play RBC off against Goldman, against Morgan Stanley, against PNC. Having them as a partner just simply adds a layer of cost. And I think it goes against, and I'll continue to say, unless somebody can write up a statement suggesting why automatically RBC is the lead underwriter in a negotiated deal, I think it violates Pennsylvania code. The way I read it, and I'm not an attorney, but it says it very explicitly.
Dr. Murray, wouldn't that be the role that PFM would play? You define as a partner. I would expect them to have to provide me with recommendations after the other outfit presented their proposal. I would expect PFM to tell me that things much like you pointed out when we last talked with. And that's what I would expect from PFM, and I don't envision them at all being a partner. I envision them being a partner with us to provide us with the best possible advice whenever these other hucksters come and bring something forward.
Well, when I say partner, I mean it was my very first board meeting that I had a discussion with RBC about the role of fiduciary. PFM comes the closest to being a fiduciary partner with us as our advisor. RBC is they're our foe in this.
They're a huckster. This
So,
is selling you something.
Again, I don't see what the attraction is to RBC, but that's where I come out.
Okay, see,
I need a little clarification here. So if we only have PFM, then who, and so then they'll do everything that RDC did, would that be correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes,
So,
But-
in other words, we're trading RBC for PFM.
No, because PFM isn't selling the tool, right? They're not also, when Tim talks about a fiduciary responsibility, they're just representing our interests. But what Tim's saying, I think, is that RBC was also selling the bond.
Right.
So that what PFM does not sell bonds.
So they come in
and
and
they
they-
advise you,
right.
and you're supposed to go out, the way I saw the presentation, is they do all this analysis, then they go out to the market and say, this is Exeter School District, this is what they're looking to do, you guys come back and bid on this. And when those bids come in, then they're advising us in their role as our fiduciary on these different proposals. Is that a fair assessment, Tim?
exactly.
And they do it for free if we say no.
No, my understanding was that they were going to be fee-based, not percentage-based, and they were going to be able to construct the whole deal. So if we need to release X amount of dollars in bonds, they were going to be able to package everything together, and then they were going to do, just as Mike just described, they were going to then contact the JP Morgans, the XYZs, and say, this is Exeter Township School District, this is their rating, this is what they're providing, this is what they want to sell to you, what are you interested in purchasing and what rate?
So then PFM will have all of the information and will be following all of our financial things day by day so that they can decide on the day that would be the most appropriate to go out and start negotiating this or start investigating this to bring it back, because we have a time frame and we don't have anyone to do the buying or selling or putting together a work. So the timeliness on this is different than what we've been accustomed to, where the RBC came as our bonds were getting close to this opportunity to switch them over. And they talked to Ann about it and then came to us.
But we've
So they're
always-
not, so PFM is going to be following us in that same manner. They follow all the things that we have, and then they're going to have a conversation with Ann, or Ann's going to have a conversation.
Well, I guess how the relationship would start out, because in the beginning, you have to build trust. And I thought that the desire of the board was to have an independent financial advisors for different reasons: debt management, asset management, their budget model. But PFM would be engaged with RBC and myself in talking about what's opportunities available, coming to the school board, making the presentation, if the board continues to do negotiated sales. Now, PFM, if they would recommend doing competitive bid, the board would, then RBC, they'll know their role will change. Because then PFM would have to take over preparing the official statement, take over the rating, call, et cetera. And then RBC, their opportunity would be to bid on the bonds. So is this board saying go over, well, what is your desire here?
What I would expect PFM to do after they hear RBC's presentation is to recommend to this board, within the time frame that you have to execute this particular financial maneuver, these are your options. What weaknesses or what unnecessary costs are there in RBC's proposal? Where can we gain some money by working with RBC? Would they recommend going over to some other, I expect them to act as our financial advisor.
Not if we don't have RBC in the picture. You see,
RBC can, that based upon, I'm not kicking RBC out. RBC would be, no, I'm not, they are not a partner with RBC, they're a partner with us. And if they say kick RBC out, tell me why. We've been with them for 10 years or however long. Yeah, about 10 years. Tell me where's my better opportunity, what should I do? I want your advice, and then the board decides on it.
So then they would go out to everybody but RBC because RBC is bad.
Well, RDC would have already, no,
That's what I hear from Tim. I hear that
No.
that RBC is out, PFM is our predominant, our
It's-
go-to person.
it's about
And they spread out.
optimizing the opportunity. We have an opportunity to reissue bonds. Is it in our financial interest to do so? What we do with it, what would the recommendation be, Edward? Tim, you're better at talking this than I am.
Here's my point to Carol, as part of the start of a new year for me. Prove to me that RBC has been the most effective underwriter for any of the issues that we have had. Prove your point. Quantify your point. Prove it.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding.
I can't do that.
Prove it. Hire somebody to do it.
Well, I think I think the concern is this, it's sort of an inherent conflict of interest. So let's assume that you commit a crime, okay, Carol?
How about if I go to a bank
All right,
instead?
so you rob a bank, but the prosecutor who's gonna charge you also decides that he's gonna be your defense attorney. That's a conflict of interest. And I think what Tim is, well, I know what Tim is saying is that there's an inherent conflict of interest with RBC, both advising us and selling the products that we're investing into, for lack of a better term. You don't have real fiduciary responsibility because you're not really representing the market to us or us to the market, because you're the one that benefits as our representative. Is that?
Yeah, all PFM does is they come in and say, we have a refunding opportunity. And they put the bid out for competitive bid. And RBC, along with Goldman and Morgan and everyone else, and it could end up saving us a lot of money.
And I think that's the other point of the negotiated versus the competitive, is what I think when we talk about that, we've done negotiated. The question was, is by going the competitive route, could we save $50,000, $100,000? And that remains to be seen if PFM.
But unless I missed something, that question was asked, trying to think back, possibly of both of the groups that presented. And what I heard was, it's an individual choice of the school district. There really is not a big advantage one way or the other. It's about half and half. Did I hear that correctly, Ann? Maybe it was said.
Right, there was no way to lay out a percentage of savings, because there's a lot of variables in any deal, in the structure of the deal. So that was their response,
And I would have thought, I was expecting, based on, things I was hearing and about, again, the inherent conflict of interest, that independent financial advisors would be more in favor of competitive rather than negotiated. And
that
that's
was
not
my
what I
point
heard.
in putting this in here tonight. To get that other set of eyes who could conceivably be acting more in our interest. I'm an old stick and throttle man. I fly helicopters and kill people. But these people are supposed to be experts. And they're the ones, and so we get another set of eyes and another recommendation, and the board decides what to do.
If carrying out your thinking to the next level, why do we then go with competitive bids for anything else? Why don't we negotiate everything?
I don't know, Tim. I can't answer that question because my knowledge of school finance is
No,
limited
but I'm
to the
talking about,
basics.
why don't we negotiate buses and anything else? Why do we go out for competitive bid on anything?
It sounds reasonable that competition is good in this case, and it would favor us financially, but that isn't what I hear other people saying when we ask the question, such as independent financial advisors. And I fully expected that they would say, you know what, competitive is the way to go. And I'm very surprised that they didn't. So that confuses me even more about this whole argument that seems to keep coming back.
I don't know if they could responsibly say they were going to necessarily save us money. because in anybody's business, you know, they may just be able to break us even. But they can't say you're going to yield this much savings by doing this, because then they're putting their liability out there if they
No,
don't perform.
but they could say with our experience and the fact that we're the biggest company and we've been dealing with this for so long, we would say on average, you're gonna do a little bit better with competitive bidding. You know, and that's sort of what I was looking for. I know they can't say, I can guarantee you that you're going to do better financially, but something sort of where the scale would be a little bit balanced in one direction or another.
I think they have to know the deal before they can say anything like that. And if they hear
they've done
RBC's
so many
proposal,
deals.
yeah, but each proposal has to be a little bit different. If they, you know, Dr. Kimura, when he argued down RBC, he saved us some money that time. They reduced, you know, what I'm saying is, an outfit like PFM, I have no stock in PFM, but an outfit like PFM acting as a consultant could lead us into it, you know, and they may say, well, hey, considering everything, the deal that RBC's offering is good, I don't think we could do any better. That's fine. But, you know, it's just another set of ears and someone who has our interest in mind to act as our consultant.
It seems to me the only place that you can actually expect to save money is on the fees of the company that's doing the deal.
See, I don't know.
Well,
I don't have that, I don't have that expertise.
Because everything else is on the market. It's the market fluctuates, and so if you are, I really do believe that that's the area, and that's, I don't know if that's where you save the money from RBC, but it just seems that that would be the only place that you could actually do it. And so Vanguard does very well because their fees are set by parameters that nobody else deals with. You know?
I don't know.
That's true.
Maybe you can answer this, Tim. Competitive marketing, competitive bidding, is that done on the internet and then, you know?
Well, I mean, what they do is, like anyone, they put it out on a service, so maybe it is out on the internet. They say Exeter Township is looking to float a deal for $22 million as part of a refunding effort. We're soliciting bids up until 4 o'clock this afternoon. And you get the bids in and you accept the lowest bid.
I think that is what, you know, I hate to disagree with you, Dr. Martin, but I think the person that was explaining that said that it would depend maybe on the day, so that maybe a negotiated one would be better than a competitive. But I think they also said that competitive, like if you look at percentages, are better. I mean, I think that's what I heard him say. They said at that time. That, you know, you can check the transcript.
Yeah,
I think the question right now is, do we want to invite PFM? We will decide Tuesday whether we want to invite PFM. And if we don't, then we don't. You know, and that's that. If you want to have Concord, that's fine. If you've got ABC Consulting, bring them on and we can decide on that.
For me, it probably would clarify things if PFM just came and then acted the way they were going to act, and when I saw how they were going to act, then I could better
Oh, we have
understand
no
what they were
contract.
going to do.
We have no contract with them, we owe nothing, so
I know.
it is a test run in a way. Mr. Brady, would you like to continue on?
I would love to continue on. Next week we'll be recommending that the Board of School Directors acknowledges and agrees to the arrangement of the audit of the financial statements for the period ending July 30, 2014 by Mellee LLP for a fee of $18,250 as illustrated in attachment BI.D. Next week, we'll be recommending the Board of School Directors appoint 2 individuals to be voting delegates to participate in the PSBA Delegate Assembly to be held on Tuesday, October 21st, 2014. Between now and next week, if you're interested in doing so, please tell Mr. Glitter. Anybody interested?
I won't be in the state. I would have been interested, but I had not attended.
I'm not gonna be here either.
I normally attend that.
Okay, so we'll look for one more individual to go with you. Possibly.
Russ
unless we-
usually volunteers.
Russ normally represents BCTC.
Oh, that's right.
That, what is going to be covered is what I spent all day Saturday working.
Was it fun?
No,
Okay, just
you're stupid.
It can be just one, it could be up to two.
your endorsement is really
Oh,
strong.
can we just hold?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day. Next week, we're recommending the Board of School Directors ratifies a change order request for the Watton Creek site work project for additional services to the stone subbase from the pervious parking lot. The amount of the change order is $33,128.35. The scheduled completion date of the pervious parking lot is August 20th, 2014, 5 working days later than the original completion date of August 15th, 2014. Attachment 6.F will illustrate this further. Next week, we'll be recommending that the Board of School Directors approves the following change orders for the Watton Creek site work project. Change order credit number 3, alternate SW-1, alternate relocation of portions of walking trail for a deduction of $15,903.83. Change order request number 4, alternate SW-2, alternate locations for PCSN, better known as post-construction stormwater management, amended soils for a 0 deductible or addition. And that ends business functions.
Not quite.
As far as I was concerned, it was.
This is where Mo's sign will be inserted, or the, we have Mr. Legoff here who really knows what's going on. If there are any questions on the leasing of the sign for the rest of the year, or for this year.
And the board would have to agree on the fee according to the policy. The fee is set by the board, and it's our recommendation that the fee for this would be $3,500 annually. And this would just be for this year,
This year being until
the 14-15 school
Oh.
year.
And so do you want to describe where the sign, this will be, and then what the fee is relative to the other fees, and why it's an advantage? I guess that'll be obvious.
I have a picture of it on my phone.
Oh,
I can show it to you.
I have the
But
same
you have,
picture on my phone.
you have the scoreboard in the stadium.
Yes.
Right below the scoreboard, between the two posts, is where the sign would go.
And the $3,500 fee for the year relative to what everybody else is paying?
No, much higher. What we have,
Is it because it's a bigger sign?
I came
Does
up with-
anybody want to see a picture of
You
this?
came up with that. Just a minute, the sign isn't there, all right. So is it gonna be the whole width of the?
Tom,
Yeah, the
just
width.
send it to me,
Yeah.
send it to me. So
Okay. And you came up because you thought that was a reasonable fee?
Yeah.
All right.
The way our advertising structure works is for the first year, it's $500, for the second year, it's $800, and the third year, it's $1,000.
For the scoreboard or the?
Just a
Stadium
normal,
sign
stadium.
on the wall.
just a normal banner in the stadium, in the gymnasium, or on tennis courts when we base our. And I just thought, whenever you have a contest in the stadium, everybody looks at the scoreboard all the time. And just thought it would be a good price for something that is going to be visible all the time.
You don't think the football will get hot and that's
No.
They're not even close. Does this preclude us from selling any other space on the sign?
It does.
Why?
Well,
Why can't we put a D and a Q on either side of the speakers? Just as a suggestion, like I put a Mick and a D on either side of the speakers. Actually, I put McDonald's here with Dairy Queen underneath.
So you're trying to get a bidding war for the spot next to
No, I'm
it.
adding
I could do
space.
that, but for, yeah,
How big's their sign?
Well, we're just gonna do the width of the post.
How deep?
We
I have 6 feet to sell.
We'll look at it, we haven't determined that.
Any other specific questions?
So I was paying for production of the sign,
Post.
and that'll stay up. What's the construction? Will it be a banner like the ones on the fence? or will
Yeah, I
it
have to
be-
look at what would be, I think, more along the lines of a banner, just like what we have, but
Did-
much larger.
Don't you think that in that position, not being against a wall, it would be more subject to the elements and could be damaged and a little more easily with wind?
Could be, I mean, it's,
You have a kicker that can reach that sign this year?
nah. He's that type of saying that.
Material you might want to suggest is some kind of metal type of material.
I-
But at the same time, we have to watch the mailing that doesn't do any damage to the
Yeah.
structural member pulling the sign. So it should be a clamp type of thing, not a drill in type of situation.
Yes, and we're gonna get contractors to come in, bid on it and then go with the best quality, but they are covering the expense, so it's gonna cost us.
Your comment before about the 3-year agreement, just jumping back to that, it's $500 for the first year, $300 for the second year, and $200. Wouldn't we want to say $1,000 for the first year, $800 for the second, and $500, and reduce and try to incentivize folks to go into long-term contracts, as opposed to, I mean, if you sign a long-term lease, generally they reduce the costs.
Yeah. I thought it
Now,
was-
we're doing just the opposite.
I think the 800 for the second year is the charge for the 1 and 2 years, and the 1,000 is charged for 1, 2, 3. It's not cumulative,
It's 532.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So in other words, you're paying $1,000 up front for a 3-year deal, you're paying $800 up front for a 2-year
Yes.
deal, and
Okay, that's,
you can't do it 5, 3, and 2, though, you have to do the whole thing at once. And you're getting a break,
I
just
thought
as you
maybe
said.
RBC had negotiated. Sorry.
No, the board did.
that's why we need to be up there. Anyone else need anything, Mr. Woodcock? Thank you, Tom.
Yes, you
Better quality pictures.
Personnel, David is not here. Personnel committee, who's,
Committee of one, I'll be happy to read
Use your microphone. That way everyone will hear.
Item A, the retirements, will be recommending the certificated staff and one for support staff. Item B, resignations, will be bringing before the board. Item 1, under that, 1, the certificated staff, 2 supportive staff, and 3 extracurricular staff. Item C, appointments, recommending the following appointments. Item 1, certificated staff, and 2 extracurricular staff. And item D, we'll be recommending the leaves of absence. Item 1, certificated staff. Item E are the staff conferences, 1 through 5. That's it.
any questions or comments on any of those items?
One question I had, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking.
Age before you.
Thanks. In this case, I'm still younger, probably. I just look worse. Under B resignations, I noticed that we have a senior high technology education teacher who has decided to leave us. Do we have a replacement for that individual, or? are we-
We're working on it, you'll probably see it next week.
So that won't impact on the long range.
Do you want to explain the absence of the dates for those 3 positions? Seeing as how you did it for me today, and I
Date to be
appreciate it.
determined means that if somebody retires close to, or leaves, resigns close to the school year, we can legally hold them for 60 days, and we try not to do that. We try to expedite the hiring process. But if for some reason we're not able to find a qualified candidate, we want the kids to have a teacher. And we don't want to just put, you know, a sub in there who may not know that subject matter. So we will keep the teacher if need be, but we'll do our best to release the teacher from their duties so they can move on to their next position.
Dr. Martin, I informed Deborah and Jess Head today that we had found replacements
Yeah.
for them. And Josh has already moved to Texas, so it's sort of a moot point.
Nah. Well, what if we did decide to hold them though?
Yeah, there's a little used provision in the Pennsylvania school code that should an employee leave without permission, without the 60 days notice, you can move to have their certificate pulled, revoked. It's a little used, but if they don't give the proper notice and they leave within the 60 days without you releasing them, that kind of impact their certificate. But we should have those all.
Just on the coaching positions, are they all replacements or are any of them new?
We're not, no, are they? There's
No additional.
positions.
Thank you.
Move on to student functions.
I'm trying to turn the page. Just give me a minute here. We'll be moving to the voting meeting, Act 48 program placement agreement between the Exeter Township School District and Riverwalk Academy for Alternative Ed for Disrupted Youth, the 2014-15 school year at a tuition of $150 a day per student, additional $30 per day for student transportation services. Questions? Okay. Item B, moving approval of an agreement between the school district and Russell School District to provide programs and services for student number 130110 for the 2014-15 school year. And item C will be requesting approval for an agreement between the Exeter Township School District and Easter Seals of Eastern Pennsylvania to provide physical therapy service for student number 130110 at a cost of $102 per week. And that is it.
Any questions? Curriculum, do we have anyone from curriculum committee?
Moving right along. Reporting that the following proposed textbooks for purchase for the 2014-15 school term will be available for review for 30 days in the administration building, Succeeding in Life and Career, and Housing and Interior Design. And the next curriculum committee meeting is September the something.
September 1st, is it?
No,
No.
The first
is
Tuesday.
Labor Day.
I know it's a day I'm not going to be here. So.
Doesn't Labor Day fall on the first?
Yes, the second.
Yeah.
It's the second, September 2nd. 6:30, is it going to be 6:30 here? And that's it.
Any questions concerning curriculum? Are there any other items we brought before the board?
Well, I don't know if you know, but, Russ did resign, or take himself out of the 1/30th race as the Democratic candidate. And there will be a replacement, and that will be voted on at the Democratic County Committee. Mr. Kessler, who had been in the 1/30th as a representative, is going to run against, if elected by the Democratic County Committee, which I think he will be.
So who's running from the Republican side if we're going to make a Democratic announcement?
Well,
So
Maloney.
I don't see how this
Excuse
compares
me,
to the school
Maloney,
board.
oh,
Okay,
no,
we'll just-
because this is new, There was no, I mean, you know that Representative Maloney is, doing his seat. I mean, I'm sure you knew that from the plenary. But there will be a Democratic candidate running against him.
And there will be a Republican.
And a
so-
Republican, yeah.
That's all good.
I'm just,
Mr. Flam.
it has to do with legislation.
opportunity. Good evening. It's been a busy summer and a quick summer. It's hard to believe that we're going to open our doors for students in just under 2 weeks, but we'll be ready. A number of the items on my report you've seen before, you've heard me speak to before, but the first two I want to spend a little time on. As you are well aware, we'll be implementing college prep math this year at the junior high. And I will say that the training that the teachers have received thus far has been terrific. The 4 days spent at the end of the school year were spent very well. And I say that because, and I think our teachers appreciated the training very much because it wasn't a vendor coming in selling the product. It was teachers in the field who have used the product and could answer our teachers' questions from a very practical standpoint. Speaking to the struggles that they had initially, some of the obstacles that they overcame, could answer our teachers' questions about some of those things, again, from a very practical standpoint. And so I think our teachers have very good buy-in at this point. I think the learning curve is going to be a swift one for us, but I'm excited to implement the new program. Along with this, we're looking for some more time devoted to math. And as always, we have an eye on what we can do to prepare our students for the high school and beyond. So as you'll hear my high school colleagues speak to the STEM program in just a few minutes, we're looking to prepare our students as best we can to enter the STEM program and to be successful with STEM. So the second bullet item speaks to that. We're going to look at our master schedule over the next several months, hoping to buy more math time and hoping to prioritize our needs as we send students to the high school. We'll continue with our content area reading initiative that we've been employing for the last several years. Our learning focused meetings went very well last year. Many of the teachers did focus on RA strategies, and I felt that it was a good learning year for us, and teachers will be better prepared this year after hearing from Dr. John Weller again during one of the Act 80 days at the end of the year on PLC work. We're going to implement student learning objectives this year as part of our framework for teaching evaluation system. We'll continue to use formative assessments to gather data and to drive our instruction. We'll continue to work with teachers to align our curriculum to Common Core. And finally, our Olveus anti-bullying program, I believe, is entering its 7th year. We have new signs in the building, street signs, for example, Empathy Avenue, Olveus Way, and so forth, that kind of remind students of what we're about. Stephanie Grace, a student at Boyertown High School, will be performing for our students September 19th. It's a Friday during the morning to kick off our Olveus campaign for the year. She'll also then be performing a concert at the high school that evening. Stephanie Grace. You see our PSSA data here. Our students did very well on the Keystone exam as well. All of the 7th grade students who took the Keystone exam scored proficient or advanced, 100%. 96% of our 8th grade students were proficient or advanced, and only 3 students were basic. So I think we did quite well. Questions?
Do you know if you still have a leak problem in the back of your school there in the gym area?
We did, in the locker room.
All right. Have we have any plans to fix that, or is that
Yes, the masonry, right, has pros.
is it fixed
Yes.
before the start of school, or is it? 'Cause
Yes.
It's pretty ugly.
There was a problem with the exterior wall they were working on, and so it came into the girls' locker room and was leaking, and we're hoping that problem will be alleviated.
And how about that wall that's falling down back there? Has that been addressed?
The steps
It's a
have
brick
not been
wall.
addressed as of yet, but it's definitely on the list of items to target.
It's in the back part of the building. I walked
Steps
my
that are
dog
front
back
way.
there, it's pretty nasty looking. And people sort of sit along there when they watch the baseball games down on the field there, so. But I know I'd heard from a couple of parents about the flooding in the locker rooms, and they thought there was concern of kids slipping and falling and getting hurt. so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Isn't it a Ken's report?
Any other questions?
Eric, how did your exams for this year compare to last year? Do you know that?
Reading scores were consistent. 8th grade reading scores were a little bit stronger. Our math scores were down several percentage points, 2 or 3 percentage points, but within a reasonable range. So I think we continue to perform well.
What's your number one objective for the upcoming year?
Schedule. Investigating a new schedule and getting this math program up and running. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kane?
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to tag team as we usually do. I'm going to kick it off here, just talking about the student learning bullet here. And I put for the focus the learning focused collaborative team meetings that actually Dr. Martin got us started with last year. We took advantage, our teachers did a great job taking advantage of the 1 o'clock early dismissals that were put into the calendar to really work on teaching strategies that were going to improve student learning in their classrooms. Now this past year we focused specifically on literacy as a nice follow-up to basically 3 or 4 years now, Julie, of reading apprenticeship programs. 5 years of reading apprenticeship that Julie has been spearheading in the high school and the junior high, to the point where we've got about 65% of our high school teachers have been fully and formally trained in reading apprenticeship. So we took off from that, and the teachers would meet at a 1 o'clock early dismissal in their learning focused collaborative teams. They would brainstorm strategies, they would analyze data, and they would plan strategies to put into effect in the classroom between that meeting and the next 1 o'clock early dismissal team meetings. And they would then come back, report. They'd, at that point, it's mostly anecdotal data because there wasn't enough time there to get hard data, say, from CPT testing. And either continue with the strategy or maybe reshape it, maybe go to something different. The collaborative time for the teachers was incredibly valuable, and they were thrilled with it. This coming school year will evolve into a more formal PLC, or professional learning community structure. Eric mentioned the Act 80 days we had at the end of the year that were very well received and very productive. We had Dr. John Weller, again, thanks to Mrs. Klein, making that contact, who came in and worked for almost 2 days with our high school faculty, and they are all set to go. They set their targets for this year to start the year and everything, and they are all set to go with the professional learning communities. Now I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Dean.
Well, we talked a little bit about halfway through the year the teacher effectiveness plan and how that was implemented, and the use of ETEP. As expected, it is a long process to go through the clinical observations between the pre-conference communication back and forth, even before the pre-conference takes place, your actual observation, more dialogue going back and forth after that observation, and then finally your post-conference, and then later a follow-up walkthrough. It's a very time-intensive process, but it has netted some really great conversations with teachers and finding out what they're doing in the classroom to provide the best academic resources they can, including some of the teachers using a lot of technology in terms of putting their assignments up on websites so that students can access everything from books to whatever lecture was given that day. So there's been a lot of neat things that we've seen in terms of that. It's just labor intensive. The ETEP program that we're using for those observations has been, I think, very helpful. I think we found it to be very helpful in terms of organizing and structuring and maintaining our records as far as the observations themselves are concerned. So that part has been a very helpful tool, especially having done them using just a paper and pencil in the previous year. Having a program has been a pleasant change.
The net result with all this collaboration and the effectiveness system has been, it gets back to what we do well at the high school and throughout the district, which is we've got caring teachers who will do anything to support their kids and challenge them at the same time. They consistently manage that balance, and the results have been fantastic in terms of our graduates. What we're seeing is that students are having opportunities to pursue the education that they want. We're proud of that. We're continuing to see students step up on AP exams. We want to continue to improve some of the SAT scores. We're definitely focusing on some of the testing scores that we'll go through. But the result has been that as kids are based on their student surveys as they leave, they're getting into schools that they want to go to. We're very proud of that. And they're pursuing, the other thing that we're pretty proud of, is that they're pursuing a lot of the electives that they first took in our high school. So that's been a goal, especially over the last year or two, is expanding those electives so that they can pursue with more definite routes of what their interests are, electives at our school. And that's been a huge shift. So we're not perfect, as you'll see. We could get a little bit more engagement out of some students who aren't feeling the school route in a traditional way. We'd like to improve that in some ways, but on the whole, we're really proud of our graduates, what they've accomplished. And personally, the first student got into William & Mary, but she didn't go, so I'm disappointed about that.
Of course, no high school report would be complete without some discussion of testing, specifically the Keystone exams. The table that I put there is to give you an indication of where our individual classes stand. At the top there, the class of 2017, or 2015, excuse me, for the most part has the highest proficiency percentages because that includes students who have retaken the test. So in essence, they take the test the first time. Those who are proficient or advanced are finished. They're not even allowed to take it a second time, even if they wanted to improve, say, from proficient to advanced. Those who were not proficient for the classes of 2016 and 2017 did not have to take it again as far as the state was concerned. But for our purposes at the high school, we did have them retest. We had some remediation, reading strategies, math strategies, those types of things, some additional review, say in the Algebra 2 class or the Geometry class of Algebra 1 concepts. And so what you're seeing there, if you look at Algebra 1, 75.2% proficiency for the class of 2015, that's students who were proficient the first time around and those who achieved proficiency later on. If you'd like to see the individual numbers, we have all of that on spreadsheets and things for those of you who are curious as to how many kids actually achieve proficiency a second time around and those types of things. What's interesting is the bottom here, the class of 2017. That's the first class that is required to pass the Keystone exams in order to get their diploma. And right now, they've only been eligible for one test. So right now, that class has taken the Algebra 1 exam. And on the first time around, they scored 64.6% of them were proficient. I just got today, thanks to an email from Dr. Martin, some data from the state. Their state averages became available in the state summary reports for the spring Keystones just today. The state doesn't divvy up their data quite the way we do. They, for example, I can't see in the state what the average was for the class of 2017 across the state. What I can see is for Algebra 1, what the proficiency percentage was for all students who took the test. That would have been any class level, retesters, first-time testers, everything. But I can also see percentages for first-time testers. So for example, our students in the class of 2017 who took Algebra 1, they were all first-time testers, and they were 64.6% proficient. The state average for that Algebra 1 test for first-time testers was in the winter, for those who tested in the winter, 46.4%, and for the spring, 52.1%. So our first-time testers are significantly higher than the state average. The only other place where I really have a good first-time tester is if you look at the class of 2016, their proficiency in literature and biology. Again, that was the first time for those kids to take the test because they were not eligible to take it until 10th grade, until they complete those courses in 10th grade. So again, those first-time testers for us were 64% proficient in literature, 70.1 in biology. Okay, the state first-time testing averages were 61.5 in literature, a little bit lower than ours. I'm sorry, 59% in the winter, 61.5. They don't give us an annual percentage, they break it to the 2 testing sessions. So the first time winter was 59%, the first time spring was 61.5, both a little bit lower than our 64% across the year. And in biology, the state average for the winter for first-time testers was 49.6. And the state average in the spring test was 53.5, both of them significantly lower than our 70.1. So are we happy with our percentages? Yeah, comparatively, yes. But we obviously have a ways to go. And especially if you look at that Algebra 1 number for the class of 2017, if 65% of them were proficient, that means 35% of them have mandatory remediation facing them this school year. Because the law mandates that we remediate those students, and it also mandates that they retake the test before they can then move on to a project-based assessment way of earning their diploma if they can't pass the test on the second time. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're ready for it. As far as the, I put a quick note in there about the advanced placement exams, almost the same as last year. We had the exact same number of students who took one more test. We had 103 students each year. We had 161 tests last year, 162 this year. And my 78% is a little bit wrong. I went back, checked the College Board website. It's 80%. That's a little lower than last year, but not a significant dip. Next year should be interesting because we have significantly more students taking AP US History. Almost 3 times as many have signed up for next year as took it this year. And almost twice as many students have signed up for AP Biology as we had this year. So we're going to see the number of tests, both testers and tests, increase next year. But questions about the testing?
For the algebra, what's the passing, or I don't know if that's the right term. What percentage do the kids have to make in order to be considered acceptable?
Well, it's a threshold based on, I think it's 1504 out of, what was it, 1,800 points on this year's test was the bottom line for proficiency.
But there's also 2 different modules, thank you for that word.
Yes.
And you have to pass both modules in order to pass
Well,
the overall, right?
That's not totally true.
No?
If you reach the 1504 by scoring very high in Module 1 and so-so but not proficient in Module 2, you're proficient.
Oh, really?
You can also reach proficiency by passing Module 1 in this year's test and Module 2 in next year's test. That's also proficiency. But yeah, you can achieve overall proficiency without being proficient in both modules if you're high enough in a single module and close in the second module.
So are there 2 more? Oh, there isn't an algebra 2.
There are 2 modules in every Keystone test.
Nice. You don't want an algebra 2.
No. I'm just trying to figure this out. That's all.
With regards to, are you done, Karen?
Yeah.
With regards to, we have basically 35% of our student base that's going to have to be taking some kind of remedial action towards the algebra. How did they grade out on their course before they took the test? Were they passing?
I haven't had enough time to look at all of that yet.
I mean, I'm wondering if it was
We are
maybe
looking at
a
that.
test problem, like, some people just don't test, but they're very good on the subject, or if it was just not comprehension of material.
Well, I think from what we learned last year from the first giving, the first administration of the Keystones, and what we're seeing so far, Well, I do think there's a bit of an alignment problem, which we are addressing with a new curriculum, with the new math curriculum next year. I think part of it is also approach. I think if you were just to test our kids on the knowledge of the algebraic concepts, they'd be fine. But the way the questions are structured in the Keystone represents a different way of thinking from what they're used to. More of a problem solving, more critical analysis. And that's really where the new curriculum is going to help us.
Well, we try to remediate this. I mean, obviously, the students have possibly moved on to their next level academically. How do we work with them to get them to be able to get through this without affecting where they're trying to go scholastically?
They will take a remediation program. Their math credit this year will be a remediation program. Now, we have some one-offs who are very, very close, who may take the remediation and take geometry at the same time. They'll double up on their math, which is something that the more flexibility that we now have in our graduation requirements as far as credits allows us to do that type of thing.
So there is no credit, is there credit for remediation?
Yes. Yes, they do get a math credit for it. Other questions?
So if you're doing remediation, you cannot get on the honor roll or anything? How does that work?
No, they would still be eligible. The honor roll is based on their GPA. They would still be eligible. We're not trying to punish them. We're trying to help them achieve what the state mandates they must do in order to get their diploma.
And you said, like, I guess, which class is it the class of 17?
Class of 2017 must pass all 3 Keystone
Right.
exams.
So now, if they don't, you said there can be an alternative?
Yes. A student who fails to reach proficiency on the second test is then eligible to enter into a project-based assessment program, which is state-run. The state creates the projects, the state grades the projects. We support the student with a mentor as they work on the project. The projects are done completely online, and there is 1 project per module. So if you passed 1 module and did not pass the other, you only have to do 1 of the projects. If you were less than proficient in both modules, you may have to do two projects. Each project, they tell me, is 7 to 10 hours worth of concentrated online work.
So what if they weren't proficient in algebra or literature or the three keystones? So they would have to be remediated at each year or
Yes,
1 year with
the
that?
remediation is mandatory.
Okay.
Yes.
But
It's
is
a
that-
challenge for us, no doubt.
Is that done on your own time, or is it done on school time, the remediation?
It's done on school time.
If you want them to really
Even-
do it, you have to do it at school time.
Well, but you do, but it's
Not only that, but it has to be delivered by a certified teacher.
Right.
Oh, so that's not the online program?
Well, even the projects, the state projects, for a student who gets to the project-based assessment stage, even those projects must be done in the presence, even though it's all done online, it must be done in the presence of a certified teacher.
If I may, I would just say that the easiest way to describe the online process is that it's really under Keystone testing conditions. And that's to ensure the validity of the work that they're doing.
Yeah, it pretty much has to be worked into their school program.
And those, you don't see a situation where the student would be in such a state that they wouldn't get enough credits to graduate?
Oh, that is a potential for that.
Yeah, the potential's there.
So could they come back then for like a semester after 12th grade?
Every student in the state of Pennsylvania is eligible to continue in high school until they're 21 years of age.
Okay.
Is the remediation taught by the same instructor?
No, not necessarily. And it's not going to be the same program either.
So if a student had to take algebra, literature, and biology, that's 3 subjects, right? So it would be the same amount of, like 40 minutes or whatever your class period is? I mean, would that?
Well, in some cases, it might be a block class where they would have the full block but for only 1 semester. So that, because the block is 2 periods long.
Oh, okay.
But then it's only a half year. It's a year's worth of remediation, but it's done as a block. Because of our schedule, we can afford
Yeah, I was
to
gonna
get
say,
blocks.
it's gonna be a nightmare for scheduling it all?
It presents its
You haven't thought
challenges.
about it yet.
Oh, yes, we've thought about it a lot. It presents its challenges. It gets more
Sell that here
difficult.
on Mill's Head right now,
Yeah.
won't be there next year.
It gets more difficult when we get to biology, because with English or math, with literature, which is the English, or math, any teacher who is certified in math can teach any math class. Any teacher certified in English can teach any English class. But only a biology certified teacher can teach biology. So if we have a large number of students who need to be remediated, we may find ourselves sort of challenged to provide biology for all the students there to take the first time, and also provide a remediation biology, because it must be taught by somebody with biology certification. So I can't say, well, I have fewer earth and space science classes, I'll get Mr. Herman to teach some of the biology remediation. Mr. Herman is not certified in biology. So, yeah, it does present some challenges with that.
So
Now-
what do you think is the increased appeal of the AP biology?
I don't know, Carol. I honestly don't know.
Good teaching.
Well, but that,
Maybe this year's kids talk it up more.
that class though would be adequate for the Keystone then? Or is it a different curriculum that they need for the?
Oh, no, they take it. As a matter of fact, the AP, all of the AP science courses are really two parts. They take accelerated biology in the first semester of the year, and then the AP biology course the second semester. All of those AP students took the biology Keystone both last year and this year after the first semester, after just one semester, and every single one of them was proficient. Yeah, that's not a challenge. Keystone's not really a challenge for the guys.
Say quick, first of all, I'm very glad I'm not in high school anymore, because I would not pass those algebra tests. But,
Yes, yeah, you too.
the one-to-one preparation, I know we're probably going to delay the start of the program, but are the instructors, the teachers ready to sort of adapt their?
If you let me go in order here, I'll
Oh,
get
I'm
that.
sorry, is that on here?
Yeah,
Did I miss
that's
that?
the end. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McFarland.
Can I ask just one more question? Now, must all students, including all the special ed students that have all kind of disabilities, must they be proficient in these subjects?
There are some exceptions. There are some exceptions for students with learning disabilities.
But most.
Most have to pass it. One of the exceptions is a student with an IEP only has to take the test once. If he or she is not proficient the first time, they may enter the project-based assessment program early. So that gives them more time then to work on the project-based assessments. Good. Who's up next?
I already kind of jumped the gun a little bit, so I'll hand it over to Mr. Dean for discipline.
As far as discipline goes, if you were looking at last year's numbers versus this year's numbers, it's been a pretty strong year for us. Obviously, there's a few areas in particular that we'd like to try and change what we're doing, specifically in the area of late to schools, tardies. So one of the things that Jeff and I have been talking a lot about is how we're going to prepare this year to kind of reduce the number of late to schools that we're seeing from the students. Part of that is going to be communicating with the parents just that much earlier, and if necessary, creating a truancy elimination program for those students. Even though it's not essentially a full day truant, being tardy is still considered truant. So we're going to look at that, as well as potentially including our student assistance program, as well as the guidance counselors, to just make sure that we're doing absolutely everything that we can to address any tardy issues. Hopefully between that and working with the parents and getting them on board early, that will be sufficient to curtail some of the late to schools that we saw, because there was a bit of a spike this year over last year. In the other areas, we were pretty pleased to see numbers go down. But again, the tardiness and then dealing with some of the chronic offenders, those are the two areas that we looked to put some of our extra efforts this year.
The result, to end on a fairly high point before we get into key initiatives for this year, is we have great kids. It's a little easier for me to say that in the middle of August after 2 months of reflection, but some of the work that Mr. Legath has done and really to establish the athletic program, the activities that our students are engaged in, the music programs. We have highly engaged students. Roughly 3/4 of the students are engaged in some fashion of activities or athletics, many multiple activities. And the result is, if you go to our concerts, if you go to our freshman formal, if you go to prom, and most importantly, if you're at the graduation ceremony, the quality of our kids is reflected pretty much in all they do. So we're very proud of them.
And then Justin,
And I would congratulate you guys on doing that, because a lot of, you have them a good part of the day, and that's a reflection, I think, on the administration, on the principals, and on the teachers, and everybody who's part of that process. You guys do a good job at that. That just doesn't happen. So, congratulations.
thank you. And just to close, just looking forward to what we'll be doing this year. Of course, we have the implementation of the new Algebra 1 curriculum. Again, as Eric said, we had 4 days of training for the algebra teachers in this new curriculum, and it was excellent training. The instructors were just outstanding, and the teachers went, all the math teachers went through it at the high school, and they were raving about it. They were absolutely excited. If you can get a teacher excited about staying 4 extra days after the kids are gone, you've really done something. We have the new STEM program. Zach Potter is our lead instructor, our first one trained in the Project Lead the Way session. He spent, I believe it was 10 days, was it Todd? Yeah. In training this summer. He actually spent considerably more than that, because he had to prepare before he went to training. Before he actually got to the first day of training, he was expected to go through the curriculum and do every project on his own that the students would be required to do during the course of the school year. So he spent a considerable amount of time before he ever got to the actual training. So we're looking forward to that. The initiation of the one-to-one program, starting with the Chromebooks for the freshman class, which we will not start distribution until sometime in October at the earliest. To answer your question, we did spend a full day with the high school staff on doing some preparation for that during those Act 80 days as well. We also gave them a schedule of ongoing professional development for that, and they came out of that feeling much more confident than they were when we first started talking about the whole concept. As a matter of fact, the English department, after the workshop we did with them, said, is there any way we can get the Chromebooks to them right away in September? Because we want to kick off the year with the research units, and it would be invaluable for them to have those. So Joe Way is looking for the possibility of putting them into the classrooms in computer carts, as opposed to giving them to the kids yet, and then we'll give them to the kids according to the schedule that he's been working on all the way through. And then finally, I need my glasses. The next phase of the teacher effectiveness model, Jason talked about the first phase we did this year, kicks in this year with student learning objectives. Again, our teachers have already, all of them, been trained in the student learning objectives. I believe that's true for the junior high as well, and have already written their first drafts of the student learning objectives that are supposed to be put in place by the end of October. So that's life at the high school these days. Questions? Susan's trying to get me to sit down.
I know.
Thank you.
She's not the only one, Bill.
Actually, Bill, I do have a question. I know that this was a pretty neat class this year that just finished, and they did well. So, are you looking at the same come next year?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think the graduating class of 2014-15 is going to far outshine the class that just left. And it was a good class that just left. They are remarkable. Pardon me?
He's sitting on us. We got another shot here.
I didn't say every individual. They are a remarkable class. They really are.
Are they better than 2009?
Hey, Dr. Martin.
Before we all adjourn for the evening, I just wanted to ask if any of our board members would like to attend the Reading Fightin' Phils versus the Binghamton Mets on Sunday for the Exeter night celebration. I know a couple of you attended last year. If anybody's interested in going with your family, I just have 1 or 2 tickets here that I'll throw your way. Any takers, want some, want 2?
Uh,
Anyone else, anyone else?
I'll take some.
Define
Okay.
some.
Whatever you've left. 4.
Kid, Doug.
I was just wondering if we had any idea of what our cyber and charter school sign-up was for this year.
No, it's too early to tell. I did send out a letter, and I also included that flyer that had compared our scores on the school performance profile with those of the charters, cyber charters. I sent that out to each family who had a child in the cyber charter environment last year. And apparently we did get a few takers, not sure exactly how many, kids that re-enrolled back in our school. One that we know of and 2 others that had inquired about enrolling, and I don't know if that was followed through on those 2. But, so
It'll be about on par from last year.
probably, but we never really know until the dust sort of settles in the beginning of the year. It takes really a couple months to.
Right.
And sometimes it sort of goes up artificially, and then it comes back down when kids decide after a week, oh, you know what, this isn't for me, and go back to regular school. So.
You can ask child accounting to run the report.
Yeah.
Just curious, I mean, just to,
Yeah.
at the big issues.
Yeah, I figured once school gets underway, I'll check with Beth and get some numbers.
Have we had any sort of an influx of students, is there any growth over the summer that?
Well, the only class I'm concerned about right now is the kindergarten at Lorraine, which continues to grow. And at this point, there are 24 students in each of the 4 classrooms.
So that's more than last year?
Yeah. So we're watching that very carefully. I really don't like to see it get any higher than that. There could be a couple of people who change their mind and decide not to send their child, So it's kind of hard to tell. And Mrs. Haller is out. She had her baby last week. I don't know if a little girl. And
Pictures.
Yeah, we have pictures.
No, I want you to send us some pictures.
Oh, you don't have any?
Julie does.
I'll send them to you right now.
Yeah, I got it from Julie.
I went and saw the baby today. Oh my gosh, I have babies. She has little babies. Little baby. I never saw a baby so little. She's so cute.
I'm sure she is. So we're keeping our eye on that. Other than that, things seem to be pretty stable. But we'll see.
So what is the number of kindergartens a year?
Well, let's see. We're at about. What did I just say? Like 92 at Lorraine, and we're at about 94 at Owatton, and about 65 maybe at Jackson Wald in terms of the incoming class, which I think is probably at about par. Jackson Wald's a little higher than last year. Lorraine is a tad higher. Owatton I think is a little lower. So if we get any more kids at Lorraine, we may have to ship them over to Mrs. Cook.
I already offered.
Yeah, because she has about the same number of kids with 5 teachers as we're sitting at Lorraine with 4 teachers. So we may have to, take a look at that. But you could still get more.
And we are.
Yeah. That's it.
I thank you very much for the board members. It's Monday at 6:30. And any other items to be brought up? We are adjourned then.
See you Monday.